So, let's start today's topic. It's a philosophical, we will explore some deep philosophical points, so I would request your attention. And we would study them with the help of Swami Vivekananda's writings on the subject. So, the topic, as we have seen, is the philosophy of Ishvara. This means that we will try to understand with our limited intellect the nature of Ishvara or God. Why we should try to do, we will just take up one by one the points. So let me start by quoting a beautiful Sanskrit verse from the Shvetashvara Upanishad, which wonderfully describes the qualities of Ishvara or God. Satanvayo hi amrita isha sanstogya sarvago bhuvanasya gopta ya ishesya jagato nityameva nanyo hetur vidyate ishanaya yo brahmanam vidadati purvam yo vai vedangsha prahinoti tasmai tam hadevam atma buddhi prakasham mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye. He is the soul of the universe. He is immortal. His is the rulership. He is the all-knowing, the all-pervading, the protector of the universe, the eternal ruler. None else is there efficient to govern the world eternally. He who at the beginning of creation projected Brahma, Brahma means the universal consciousness, and who delivered the Vedas unto him, seeking liberation, I go for refuge unto that effulgent one, whose light turns the understanding towards the Atma. So in these few lines, we have a beautiful description of the qualities of Ishvara. So why this subject? Why do we need to examine the nature of God? See, we are all devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, and those who have read the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna says that, in Bengali he says, Bhakti Sar. Devotion to God is the most essential thing. If we have that, we don't need anything else. That is sufficient to fulfill our lives completely. So here two words are there, bhakti and essence. So what is bhakti? Swami Vivekananda says, bhakti is a series or succession of mental efforts at religious realization, beginning with ordinary worship and ending in parabhakti. Parabhakti is supreme intensity of love for Ishvara. So in short, love or attachment towards God is bhakti. But we have to go deeper into this. So I would request you to share the page. You can see above, this is a page from the Shandilya Bhakti Sutras. So you can see what is written there. Athato Bhakti Jigyasa. We will now examine the nature of Bhakti, and the important aphorism which I would like to draw your attention to is the second one. Sa para anurakti Ishvare. That is supreme love, that is para anurakti, not an ordinary love. Now, this para is very important word here. Para anurakti. Hmm. Anurakti is used by Shandilya, and there is a commentator on this Shandilya Sutras, Swapneshwara. He says that Anurakti is made up of two words. Anu, after. Rakti means attachment. So attachment which comes after the knowledge of the nature and glory of God. We will love God, we will be attached to Him only after knowing His nature and glory. Otherwise, if we attach ourselves to, say, Krishna playing the flute, just a human being sort of thing, that will not be love for God. If we don't know the nature of God, then just any ordinary love, Swami Vivekananda says, blind attachment to anybody, then we can think that it is bhakti. So we should know whom we have to have love for. What is the nature of that entity? Shri Ramakrishna also says in the Gospel, Jake janbi na, take bhakti korbi ki kori. If you don't know someone, if I write a name, Tom, now I ask you, try to love Tom. You will say, I don't even know this fellow. How can I love him? So, we have, in order to have proper love for God, real love, we should know the nature of God. We cannot understand God. But with our limited mind, at least we should have an idea of the nature of God. That is why this topic is important for us. So we can stop the sharing now. So I will start by quoting Swami Nikhilananda. He says, the Indo-Aryan thinkers as early as the time of the Rig Veda recognized the eternal unity of existence, which holds in its embrace all that has come to be. This unity pervades the entire universe and yet remains beyond it. All objects, animate and inanimate, are included in it. Gods, men, subhuman beings are parts of it. As the unchanging reality behind the universe, it was called Brahman. Brahman by the Indian philosophers. So this is Brahman or the Atman, this is the thing, it is the unchanging reality behind this universe. Derived from a root which means to expand, unlimited expansion. The word Brahman denotes the entity to whose greatness, magnitude or expansion no one can put a limit to. We can put a limit to only a finite thing. For example, this USB drive, we can say 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches long, because it is a finite thing. How will you measure or limit an infinite entity? We cannot. So Brahman is infinite, and it is the unchanging reality behind this universe. And this Brahman has two aspects. One is Nirguna Brahman. Nirguna. Guna means attribute or quality. So Nirguna means Brahman which has no attribute or no quality. It cannot be described. And the other is Saguna. Saguna means with qualities or attributes. So these two types of Brahman have been described in the Upanishads. And Nirguna Brahman is also called the Supreme Brahman, to distinguish it from Saguna Brahman, Brahman with attributes. So Brahman is one without a second. And the same Brahman, we should not think there are two Brahmans. mind you. One Nirguna and Saguna. No. It is the same Brahman which has been described in two ways. Same person we can describe in various ways. Swami Kripamanji we can describe as he is the head of the Toronto Center. We can describe he is always loving and compassionate like a mother. Same person we are describing him in two ways, but he is the same person. So Brahman also is the same Brahman, but we can view it in two different ways. So this is two ways have been described because we can view it from two standpoints. One is the Vyavaharika or empirical standpoint, and the other the transcendental standpoint. So all these we will discuss. So the thing is, Vyavaharika means Vyavahara. Vyavahara means interaction. We are all in the world. We are interacting in the world. For us the world is reality. We cannot say that the world is nothing. Just saying will not make the world nothing. So we regard the world as very much real. We may have read in the Upanishads or something that the world is ultimately, it has no real existence. But for us, it is very much real. Just one day, if we don't eat food, we will realize whether the world is real or unreal. So, we who regard the world as real, for us, having any conception of the Nirguna Brahman is impossible. We can only conceive of Brahman in its Saguna aspect, attributes, with attributes. What are those attributes? It is omnipotent, omnipresent, it is the creator, sustainer and destroyer of the universe. These are the attributes of Saguna Brahman. So Nirguna Brahman or Brahman without attributes is the basis of Saguna Brahman. And this Saguna Brahman, Brahman with attributes, is the personal God or Ishvara. So we will discuss in detail. So God or Saguna Brahman is immanent in the universe and conditioned by Maya. It is conditioned by Maya or the power of God. It is the power of Brahman which conditions it as it were. As it were, mind you. Actually nothing can affect Brahman. It cannot undergo any change. But till we are in Maya, we cannot see Brahman in its absolute aspect. So we see as Brahman conditioned by Maya. Suppose we are shut up in a room. Outside there is sunlight. And our room, we cannot get out of the room. And our room is made up of different, the walls of the room are translucent, not transparent, translucent. And one wall is green, one wall is brown, one wall is red, suppose. Now when we see the sun from the green wall, through the green wall, we will see the sun as green. When we see it from the blue wall, through the blue wall, we will see it as blue. When we see it through the red wall, we will see it as red. Sun is only one. Sun has not changed. But our vision changes. But we are within the room all the time, we cannot get out. So, we are within Maya. We are conditioned by Maya. Our mind is within Maya. So currently what are we doing? We are trying to see or imagine God through our mind. We cannot go beyond the mind now, even if we try. So when we try to imagine or see God through our mind, we automatically put a limit because our mind is limited. That limit seemingly conditions Brahman. Actually, Brahman cannot be conditioned. Actually, sun cannot be covered. But through the wall, we are as if covering the sun. The sun does not change. Similarly, Brahman does not change. But in our condition, how will you imagine Brahman? If you want to have love for God, we have to have some idea. So through the mind, when we try to imagine with the words of the scriptures what Brahman is like, for us, he is the Saguna Brahman only. That is Ishvara. So, Saguna Brahman, we should not think that it is not true. It is very much true. Because to us, our entity is true. So, till I am true, Saguna Brahman is very much true. God is very much true. So, Brahman as if has imposed upon himself for our sake a limit and has become manifest as three entities. The God, first is God, the soul and the world. We see three entities. First is I, the soul, the Jivatman, the individual soul. Second is this creation. Third is God, who is beyond the creation, who controls creation. So it is actually Saguna Brahman or Ishvara who creates, sustains and destroys the world. Destruction does not mean that, finishing off. Destruction means the world is absorbed into God. Then again it becomes manifest in the next creation cycle. So when Brahman becomes conditioned by the upadhi, superimposition of Maya, and as it were changes due to Maya, it is called Saguna Brahman. But it must not be forgotten that the change is not real. It is only apparent. So, Maya, which conditions Brahman, so to say, is conceived of as Brahman's inscrutable power. So, in association with Maya, Brahman becomes the dynamic creator of the universe. And this creator, sustainer and destroyer of the universe is called Ishvara. This whom we worship as God, and we worship him in various forms as Shri Rama, Shri Krishna, Shri Ramakrishna or Jesus or Buddha. We can have any form, any name we like. So, like the ocean, Brahman appears to us in two aspects. One is the ocean is absolutely calm, nothing is there, not even a ripple, absolutely calm, without any activity, so to say. That is Nirguna Brahman. But when the ocean breaks into waves, it's the same ocean, but that is comparable to the Saguna Brahman. So the tranquil ocean can be compared to the Nirguna Brahman, and when it is agitated, it becomes Saguna Brahman. The ocean is the same. So similarly, this Brahman is also the same, whether it is engaged in the creation, preservation or destruction of the universe, or it remains still. So Kali and Shiva, those who have seen the form of Kali and Shiva. Kali and Shiva are not different. They are just conveying to us the two aspects of the same reality. Kali is the dynamic aspect, when creation of the world is there. And when it subsides, then it becomes Shiva. Shiva is lying without doing anything. And Kali is dancing on him. Means the power of Brahman Again and again Sri Ramakrishna has said, Brahman and its power are not different. So, Kali and Shiva also are not different. One represents Saguna aspect of Brahman and the other is the Nirguna aspect. And Sri Ramakrishna, this deep philosophical point, see how beautifully Sri Ramakrishna explains that a snake is a snake. Snake can stand still, but it can also move. So when it is moving, it is active. When it is still, it is still. But it is the same snake. So God is the same, Brahman is the same when He creates the universe or when He does not create, in the formless aspect also. So this Brahman with attributes or Saguna Brahman is called Ishvara, Bhagavan. So many names are there. And He is the personal God who is worshipped by devotees like us. And in the scriptures it has also been defined beautifully. How is Ishvara defined? In the Brahma Sutras, you must have heard the name Brahma Sutras. The Brahma Sutras systemizes the philosophy of the Upanishads. It deliberates upon the Upanishad verses and tries to convey what they really mean. Those are the Brahma Sutras. So in the Brahma Sutras it is there, Janma Dyasya Yata. Yata, from which, what happens? Janma Adi, etc. Janma means birth. Birth, etc. of the universe. Etc. means birth, sustenance and dissolution of the universe. From whom it happens, that is the Saguna Brahman or the Ishvara. So Swami Vivekananda says, the eternal, the pure, the ever free, the almighty, the all-knowing, the all-merciful, the teacher of all teachers, that is Ishvara. Or, above all, Saha Ishvara Anirvachaniya Prema Swarupa. The same Ishvara we can view in different ways according to our inclination. We can view Him as the all omnipotent, omnipresent Ishvara, almighty. But we can also look upon Him in a different way. What is the different way? One of them is Saha Ishvara Anirvachaniya Prema Swarupa. He is the Lord of His own nature, which is the, what is that nature? Inexpressible love. Love which cannot be expressed. This inexpressible term is used to distinguish worldly love and bhakti. We should know very well the difference between our worldly attachments and love for God. They are completely opposite in nature, although they seem to be the same. So to distinguish this expression inexpressible is used. So these are the definitions of a personal God. What is Ishvara? What is a personal God like? So again and again we mention that we should remember that when a seeker of Brahman, he negates everything, a jnani who is following the path of knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna says, he says, not this, not this. Na iti, neti, neti. So he discriminates. Brahman is not this, Brahman is not this, Brahman is not this. Whatever I can think of, imagine, Brahman is not this. Then after he negates everything, what remains is the Supreme Brahman. So then Swami Vivekananda says, are there then two gods? The not this or Satchidananda of the jnani or the philosopher and this God of love of the bhakta, then are there two gods? No. It is the same Satchidananda who is also the God of love. The impersonal and personal in one. One person He is the father to his daughter. He is a husband to his wife. He is a son to his mother. It's the same person. It's how you look at that person. So we should always understand that the personal God worshipped by the bhakta is not separate or different from the Supreme Brahman. Swamiji says, all is Brahman, the one without a second. Only the Brahman as unity or absolute is too much of an abstraction to be loved and worshipped. So if you are told, think of the Nirguna Brahman, what will we see when we close our eyes? Everything dark. That is all we will see. And in 2 minutes we may fall asleep also. So that will be our meditation on the formless aspect of Brahman. Because till we are conditioned by the mind, we have to think of God through some form. It cannot be otherwise. This Swamiji has explained very well. That is a different topic. He's explained it very well in this Bhakti Yoga. So this Supreme Brahman is the same, and when viewed through our limited minds, it is Ishvara. Now we come to another topic. What is the relation of this Brahman to the world? Is Brahman sitting on a cloud, on cloud 9? Many people say, why has God created this world, so much suffering, why has He given us? So what do those people, what is their thinking of God, imagination of God? God is sitting somewhere on a cloud. He has created this world like a potter creates a pot, and we are suffering and He is enjoying. That is not God. He cannot be so cruel. God has Himself become all this. When we are suffering God, it is God who is suffering, because we are not different from Him. So we have to understand what is the relation of Brahman to this world. Otherwise, we will keep on blaming God for our suffering. Now see, every object in the universe, this I request your attention. Every object is the form of some substance. We know that. Suppose there is a big iron safe or iron bridge. What will we see? What will we say? That iron is the substance. When we give it the form of a safe, it becomes a safe. When we give it the form of a bridge, it becomes a bridge. Wooden table, this chair, all that. So all these are, everything made of wood is a form of the wood. The substance is wood, but the forms are different. So the universe consists of objects, material and mental and spiritual. Material objects we can see, mental objects are our thoughts. Those are also objects, mind you. And spiritual object is the soul, the individual soul. We can say, how can we see the soul? We can see, those who can see. Sri Ramakrishna saw. When Akshay, his nephew, died, Sri Ramakrishna said, I saw like a sword coming out of the sheath. I saw Akshay leaving the body. He saw the soul of Akshay. So they have such vision. So the individual soul is actually clothed in the subtle body, and it can be seen. So all the objects in the universe, so we can say the universe consists of objects, material, mental and spiritual. So most of us can just see the material objects through the 5 senses we have, but we should know that our thoughts are also objects. We can at least feel their presence, though we cannot see the thoughts. Now, our scriptures say, like all the objects made of wood are nothing but wood, only the form differs. Similarly, all the objects of the universe are made up of only one substance, and that is Brahman. So, Brahman has transformed itself into all these. That is why Sri Ramakrishna says, wherever I see only God. I see only consciousness. In all these different forms, the forms differ, but the substance is one. You can call it Brahman, you can call it consciousness, you can call it God. So that one substance which pervades the entire creation, without which there can be nothing. Nothing can exist without that. How can a table exist without a wood? A wooden table cannot exist without a wood. So, that is the underlying reality behind the table. Similarly, no object of the universe can exist without God. Because God is the underlying reality. So, that is the relation of Ishvara to the universe. And to use a simile, Swami Vivekananda says, Brahman is the clay or substance out of which an infinite variety of articles are fashioned. As clay, they are all one, but form or manifestation differentiates them. A wood, you can make a table out of a wood, you can make a small stool out of a wood, you can make small balls also out of wood maybe. So all those are wood only, but their form differs. So similarly, all of us are not different from God, but our form differs. Because the form differs, the manifestation of God within us also differs. Manifestation means God is fully manifested in incarnations, like Sri Ramakrishna and others, Rama, Buddha, etc. And it is a little less manifest in saints and sages. Like we know, Mirabai, Tulsidas, Surdas, so many saints have been there. And in people like us, ordinary people, it is very little manifested, but it is the same. There is no difference in the real substance. So, Swamiji says, all the things of the universe, they are identical substantially because all of them are nothing but Brahman. But when formed, and so long as the form remains, they are separate and different. The clay mouse can never become a clay elephant because as manifestations, it is form alone that makes them what they are. This is a very, very important point. It is the form alone which differentiates a mouse from an elephant, if they both are made of clay. If you congeal them into a mass, formless mass, it is all the same. So till we have a form, we are in this body. It is useless to say that I don't believe in Saguna Brahman or I think of Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi and all that big things which we have read. That make no sense till we are in a body, till we have a form. Once we realize that reality, when we are in that state, when there is no form anywhere, only then the Mahavakyas become true for us, not before that. Before that, again and again Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, what is the attitude you should have? I am the servant, God is the master. I am the worshipper, God is the worship. You cannot get outside this till we are in this body, till we are having our individuality. So, this absolute, this reality which is manifesting in different ways, what is the highest manifestation of that? highest manifestation of that reality is called Ishvara. So we are viewing God through different angles. It is the same God. God is also manifesting through this pen drive. It is also manifesting through this table, through this recorder. But these are not the highest manifestations. The highest manifestation is when he becomes Ishvara, when there is nothing to hide his glory. This is the thing. So, the personal God or Ishvara is the absolute looked through the haze of Maya. We cannot see the pure Brahman till we are in Maya. We are driving a car, there is a fog. So there is something lying on the road, the favorite example of Advaita Vedanta. There is a rope lying on the road. Since we are seeing it through a fog, we are afraid, we think it is a snake. It is the same thing, but we cannot see it distinctly. So it is the same Brahman which we worship as Ishvara or Bhagwan or whatever we call it. So till we are within Maya, there will inevitably remain the triune vision of the one in undifferentiated Brahman as nature and soul and Ishvara. Nature is all this, we are the soul, worshipper, and Ishvara is the worshipped. So this fact has been demonstrated by examples in various ways so that we can understand. It has been demonstrated through the lives of saints and sages in our Puranas, etc., through stories. So we all know the story of Prahlada. Prahlada was the greatest devotee, so to say, of God. So it is said that when Prahlada forgot himself, he forgot that he was Prahlada. He had climbed so high spiritually. So when he forgot that he was Prahlada, he did not find Lord Nrsimha before him, because he had gone above forms. At that time he found neither the universe nor its cause. All was to him one infinite, undifferentiated by name and form. But as soon as he became Prahlada, what did he say to Nrsimha? Nrsimha Avtara, that you and I are one. It is nonsense. So, as soon as he remembered that he was Prahlada, there was the universe before him, and with it, the Lord of the universe, who is the repository of an infinite number of blessed qualities. So it was with the blessed gopis. So long as they had lost sense of their own personal identity, when they had forgotten that they were human beings, they are gopis, they had climbed so high, then they thought they were all Krishna. Because they had gone above form. But when they began again to think of him as one to be worshipped, then they were gopis again. And immediately unto them appeared Krishna with a smile on his lotus face, clad in yellow robes, Pitambaradhara, and having garlands, etc., the God of love. So this we should clearly understand, especially when we try to read the Upanishads and all that. Wasn't Swamiji a knower of Brahman? The greatest knower of Brahman, perhaps? So what did he say to Sri Ramakrishna? That you and I are same. He is sitting at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna. He is making pranams to Holy Mother, Sashtang pranams. He said to Mother once, Ma, sob udiye jacche amari. He had such a great soul, you see, Swami Vivekananda, the whole universe is as if going. So Mother says, Dekho Baba Noren, amake udiye diyo na. So Swamiji says, Ma, je gyan guru ke udiye daye, say Gyan or Gyan. The knowledge which can remove one's guru is not knowledge, it is just ignorance. So, this is the thing. And bhakti, of course, we know devotion can be directed towards Brahman only is personal aspect. Naturally, you cannot love somebody who is without qualities, without form. How do you love that person? It is impossible. And that is why Shri Krishna says in the Gita, to make us understand this, Kleshodhikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam. Avyakta means unmanifested. Asakta means attracted. Klesha means pain, the trouble. Klesha adhika. Too much trouble will be there if our mind is, from the beginning, if we are think that we will worship the formless aspect of God. We cannot imagine that aspect. Unnecessarily we will delay our progress. The way is more difficult for those whose mind is attached to the Absolute. Explaining this, Swamiji says, we cannot have any idea of Brahman which is not anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic means having human characteristics. When we try to imagine God, we have to try to imagine Him as a human form. But is it not equally true of everything we know? The greatest psychologist the world has ever known, Bhagwan Kapil, the founder of the Sankhya philosophy, demonstrated ages ago that human consciousness is one of the elements in the makeup of all the objects of our perception and conception, internal as well as external. When we internally, if we try to imagine something, we will imagine that substance plus our human consciousness. Externally, when I try to see this, it is substance plus human consciousness. So, beginning with our bodies and going up to Ishvara, we may see that every object of our perception is this consciousness plus something else, whatever that may be. And this unavoidable mixture is what we ordinarily think of as reality. This mixture will be there till we are human beings, till we are individuals, for everything. So even when we try to imagine a God, we will try to imagine Him as God, the eternal substance, whatever that is, Brahman, plus human consciousness. We cannot get rid of that. And we should not try to. It is useless. So, Swamiji says, see how these ideas are very difficult. See Swamiji how he has explained this. Without his words we can never understand. Without this explanation, if you read Saguna Brahman, Nirvana Brahman in the Upanishads, our head will start reeling. We will want to lie down after 5 minutes. We cannot understand how he has explained it. He says, God is as man is. No one can see God but through these human manifestations. Talk as you may, try as you may, you cannot think of God but as man. And as you are, He is. An ignorant man was asked to make an image of the god Shiva, and after many days of hard struggle, he succeeded only in manufacturing the image of a monkey. Because he cannot think outside his human domain. So, when we try to think of God as He is, in His absolute perfection, we will meet with miserable failure. Because that is a state. You cannot by force come to that state. We meet with miserable failure because we are limited and bound by our present constitution to see God as man. If a buffalo desires to worship God in keeping with its own nature, he will see God as a huge buffalo. There is nothing wrong with that. If a fish wishes to worship God, its concept of him would inevitably be a big fish. And man must think of him as man. As man means what? As not an ordinary man, as having a human form. Suppose a man, the buffalo and the fish represent so many different vessels that these vessels all go to the sea of God to be filled. Such a wonderful example Swamiji gives. Imagine man a vessel, buffalo also to be a vessel, and a fish also to be a vessel. They all go to the ocean of God and want God to fill them up. So, each all go to the sea of God to be filled, each according to its shape and capacity. In man, the water takes the form of a man. In the buffalo, the shape of the buffalo. And in the fish, the shape of the fish. But in each of these vessels is the same water of the sea of God. It is the same God. There is no harm if a buffalo worships him in the form of a buffalo, and if we worship him in the form of a man. Not only is there no harm, but actually that is the best way. Best way for our spiritual progress. When we approach him with the five senses, we can only see him as the personal God. Because actually you cannot see God as you see this. It is through God that you are seeing this. So how can you take God outside of yourself and objectify God? You cannot objectify God because He is your own self. Can we see the eyes? Can the eyes see themselves? We can only see a reflection of the eyes in the mirror because it is through the eyes that we are seeing everything. So, the idea is that the self cannot be objectified. How can the seer be seen? How can the knower be known? But he can cast a shadow, as it were, and the highest form of that shadow, that attempt to objectify oneself, is the personal God or Ishvara. See how Swamiji explains this. The self is the eternal subject and we are eternally struggling to objectify that self. And out of that struggle has come this phenomenon of the universe. All this, the whole universe. That which we call matter. But in matter, that cannot be perfectly manifested. The highest objectification of the self, in which the self is perfectly manifested, possible for us, is the personal God or Ishvara. Swamiji says these words we should all mark. Swami Vivekananda's words. Indeed it is and ever will be all of the reality that is possible for the human mind to know. Till we are humans, that will be the only way in which we can worship God. So, this is how we can understand what Ishvara or God is. Omnipresent, all-powerful, the Lord, the ruler of the universe. Because Ish Dhatu from Ishvara comes, that means to rule. Ishvara is the ruler. He rules over everything. What is the meaning of this? Two things are applied. I quote now Swami Nikhilananda ji. Two things are implied when it is declared that Brahman is the ruler of the universe. First, He maintains all things in their proper places and prevents them from clashing with one another. This is the sense in which Brahman is compared to a setu, a bridge, which separates one body of water from another. This is one idea. Second is, as the ruler of the universe, he guides the activities of all things. He is the internal guide. He is therefore called Antaryami, the inner ruler. He is the Lord of all, He is the knower of all, He is the controller within. The sun, moon and stars follow His behest, and the gods bow down before His power. For Brahman is the inner ruler of all the things. And we have already seen that this creation, his three actions, creation, preservation and destruction. So, in order to understand this clearly, we make three forms. Brahma as the creator, Vishnu as the preserver, and Shiva as the destroyer. So these are not separate. Brahma is not fighting with Vishnu and Vishnu is not fighting with Shiva. They are the same Brahman which we are trying to understand through his different actions. So these are known as the Trimurti, the Trinity of Hinduism. And in order to understand we can study the Upanishads further if you want to, because so many descriptions, beautiful descriptions are given of Saguna Brahman. I will just quote one or two. So sublime passages of the Upanishads are there. One is there. Esha Sarveshwara, Esha Sarvagya, Esha Antaryami, Esha Yoni Sarvasya, Prabhavapyayo hi Bhutanam. He is the Lord of all, this is the knower of all, this is the controller within, this is the source of all, and this is that from which all things originate and in which they all disappear. And some of the oft repeated epithets of Saguna Brahman in the Upanishads are, when we study, we should know, when we come across these words, we should know that they mean Saguna Brahman. What are those? Brahma, Hiranyagarbha, Virat, Prana, Sutratma, all these. But we should know in the context when we are reading that. That they denote the Saguna Brahman. So, Nirguna Brahman is characterized by the absence of all attributes. It is pure consciousness, and in association with Maya, Brahman appears as the Saguna Brahman. Brahman as limited by Maya. And there are wonderful passages in the Gita and Upanishads through which we can meditate on the Saguna Brahman. Because when we try to meditate, we have to imagine in some ways. So what are the attributes of God? So if you just open any Purana, after a few pages you will find a stuti, worship. So in those passages we will find beautiful descriptions of God. And in the Gita, one of the most wonderful, when Shri Krishna shows the Virat Roop, Vishwaroop to Arjuna, that stuti, so wonderful. So many verses, beautiful verses, Arjuna describes the glory of God. He says that, I behold thee with myriads of arms and bellies. Bahudaram, udara means belly. Bahudaram, bahudangstra karalam, dishtva loka prabhyatitas. Wonderful. So we can all read this, those are for our meditation only. So this form of the universal form of Krishna embodies the vast extent of creation, preservation and destruction. The past, present and future, gods, men, animals and inorganic things. So one blessed with the exalted vision which Arjuna had, beholds all this simultaneously and in one instant. So Arjuna, the great mighty warrior, also he was scared when he saw that universal form of God. As the time, Kalosmi Lokakshaya Krit Pravriddho, God says, I am the time which destroys everything. And you think you will be killing Bhishma, Karna, etc. They have all been destroyed by me altogether. Already they are finished. You just be my instrument. Who are you to destroy or kill anybody? You are nobody. We are nobody. It is God who is doing all this. We are just the instrument. So, when Arjuna saw this, terrified by this spectacle, he obtained his peace of mind only when the Lord withdrew his effulgence and became the two-armed Krishna. Arjuna began to tremble. He says, Sakheti matva yadam prasuk, please, when Sakhe, I thought of you as my friend, Sakha. So when I addressed you freely, when I behaved with you freely, please forgive me, O God. I did not know your real nature. So then God has mercy and shows him the benevolent form again. So we are most ordinary beings. If we see that effulgent form, if ever we see that, we will probably faint. So we have to worship God in his tender and gentle aspect. Karuna Murti. And this aspect also has been variously described in the universe. He is bliss, anirvachaniya prema swarupa. There is not even in this description, there is no destruction, nothing. Just inexpressible love. And the Chandogya Upanishads described him as the refuge of love. Rudram yatte dakshina mukham tena mam pahi nityam. Rudra, let thy gracious face protect me forever. I don't want to see your terrible face, because everything is God. Even the terrible is God. But God, I don't want to see that. So for us, God is the giver of blessings, the adorable God. By revering Him, one attains eternal peace. So the seers of the Upanishads, we see that they also addressed Him as their Father and prayed to Him to lead them to the other side of the Maya. So for us, the greatest boon which God has given us, our devotees of Ramakrishna, the culmination of this Karuna Murti is Holy Mother. Not even a trace of any other thing, only pure love. Anybody can approach us. We are committing mistakes every second time. In the whole day we make maybe 1,000 mistakes. So we have to go to someone who is all love, who will forgive all our mistakes. And that is Holy Mother. Even Sri Ramakrishna is sometimes to be feared. He also used to get angry and scold people and turn them out. But Holy Mother never turned away anybody. So now we can go to the conclusion. So Nirguna and Saguna Brahman are not fundamentally different entities. This is the main thing to understand. And the summing up, you can see behind, all the points have been written down. I will not read out, you can just read for yourself. Just to make sure what we have covered during this discussion based on how Swami Vivekananda and another of our great geniuses, Swami Nikhilananda ji, have dealt with this topic. So you can just see the summary. The essentials are mentioned there, that Nirguna, Saguna Brahman are not different. The Nirguna Brahman, when seen through Maya, is what is called Ishvara or God. So this thing Sri Ramakrishna describes in such a wonderful way what we have understood in a philosophical way, Sri Ramakrishna says, Nirguna Brahman is like the infinite ocean. All water. When it freezes, it becomes blocks of ice. That is Saguna Brahman. See, all what we have discussed, in few words, Sri Ramakrishna gives the essence. And Swamiji, of course, we have seen how he explained. That is why it is said that Swamiji is the commentary on Sri Ramakrishna. All that we have read now, words of Swamiji, it is as if Swamiji explains this one statement of Sri Ramakrishna. The Nirguna Brahman is like the ocean and Saguna Brahman is like the blocks of ice when the ocean gains form. Likewise, on account of the intense love of the aspirant, Brahman, with the help of Maya, embodies itself and becomes God with form. Again, the discrimination and knowledge of the aspirant, like the heat of the sun, melt the form into the indefinable absolute. So, this is the concept which has been given in our scriptures of Ishvara, very short, in the most succinct form we have discussed in a very short way, so that we can have an idea. And when we read the Upanishads now, after having an idea through Swamiji's words, then maybe we can understand it, appreciate it better. Otherwise, there is bound to be misunderstanding, because with our limited mind we cannot understand. One place it is said that I am the devotee of God. One place it is said that Mahavakya is also correct. One place it is said that, oh, I am the Jivatman, God is the Paramatman. So which is true? All are true, according to the standpoint from which we look. So this is the great service which they have come for only this Yogacharya, Swami Vivekananda and all, to make us understand the essence of the scriptures, so that we can practice them in our lives. So let us end here today. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Paramastu.